A defiant North Korea warning tonight that it's examining a plan to launch 4 ballistic missiles targeting an area near Guam. A statement saying the missile strike would send a crucial warning to the United States. It's in response to the president's stern warning to North Korea yesterday.
North Korea best not make any more threats to the United States. They will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen. He has been very threatening beyond a normal statement. And as I said, they will be met with fire, fury, and frankly, power, the likes of which this world has never seen before.
North Korea calls a reference to the fire and fury, quote, a load of nonsense. Joining me now to discuss all of this, Lieutenant Commander Stephen Rogers. He's a former senior military intelligence officer who was a member of the Trump Campaign Committee. CNN military analyst Colonel Cedric Leighton, a former member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and Balbina Wong, a former senior advisor to the State Department. I can't wait to hear from all of you. I'm going to start with you, Lieutenant Commander.
Yes, sir.
So this is what everyone asks me. Are we going to go to war? Is there going to be some military action? And you and I have been talking about this for 2 nights now. You say...
I believe we are not going to go to war. I believe that after, look, keep in mind that President Donald Trump has not escalated this. This has been escalated by North Korea over the past 40 years. The president inherited this. Business as usual hasn't worked. They now have this intercontinental ballistic missile with a nuclear warhead. And I believe the president did change the rules of engagement here, and he made it clear to them that they heed his words.
But you don't think he boxed himself in with his language? Because after he said that, here's what North Koreans said tonight. As already clarified, the strategic force of the KPA is seriously examining the plan for an enveloping strike at Guam through simultaneous fire of 4 Hwasong-12 intermediate range strategic ballistic rockets in order to interdict the enemy forces on major military bases on Guam and to signal a crucial warning to the U.S. I mean, is that why he should have maybe not said fire and fury?
No, I don't believe he boxed himself in. I believe if they dare fire a missile, that's your red line that they're going to cross. But I've got to tell you, and we've talked about this earlier, what astonishes me is what they didn't say. They're not threatening South Korea. Not a word about South Korea. The North Koreans don't want to go to war with us. They know what will happen to them in the event that they cause a nuclear, well, not a nuclear war, but a conventional war. So I really believe, Don, that the president, in an interesting way, strategically maneuvered the region into a position where perhaps China will now step in and do their diligence.
Balbina, earlier today, you said that you thought that we were all overreacting to this fire and fury statement. Do you still think that? And what should the president say or do next?
Well, yes, I do, and I think the statements that came out of from Secretary Mattis and Secretary Tillerson were exactly right. I mean, I think they are the ones that is the tone of the policy. And frankly speaking, this is not some dramatic change in policy. The Trump administration's North Korea policy review very clearly states that the Trump administration will pursue maximum pressure and engagement. That's actually very consistent with what W. Bush said. And by the way, W. Bush, when he gave his Axis of Evil statement back in 2001, that also set off a firestorm, which we had to deal with for over a decade.
I remember that, yeah.
So, I mean, these kinds of rhetorical statements, these strong statements have been stated before, but Lieutenant Commander is exactly correct. Let's put the blame exactly where it belongs, which is North Korea.
Mm-hmm. Colonel Leighton, I want to bring you in because you say if North Korea has produced, and that's an if, right, because it's according to a source, a miniaturized nuclear warhead, as was reported yesterday, that it's a game changer. So what do you make of tonight's threats, and why do you think that either cyber, because the Lieutenant Commander said he doesn't believe there's going to be any sort of response militarily or whatever, but you think that cyber, sabotage, or commando attacks are more likely?
I do think that, Don, and the reason I think that is because the North Koreans are going to try to use the entire spectrum of capabilities that they have. So when you look at their statement tonight that basically goes in and says we are going to use intermediate range missiles against targets around Guam, they're not threatening to use their long-range missiles, their intercontinental ballistic missiles or ICBMs. What they're threatening to do is use weapons that they already already have, that we have known they've had. So there may be a lot of bluffing going on here, but the North Koreans are more than willing to use the entire arsenal that is at their disposal, and it would not surprise me one bit if all of this posturing results in something completely different from what we are expecting right now. I do think that the reactions that we've seen about the president's remarks are very interesting, because the president is basically reacting to a report of an assessment. He is not reacting to an actual North Korean action.
Okay,
and,
so
there's a
So be clear for us then, because you said likely to result in something that we had never seen before. Be more specific about what that means, because that is a response in itself, as I said initially with your question.
That it is, absolutely. And so what I think we would see, Don, is something that is perhaps even outside of the realm of missile technology. It would be perhaps a cyber attack, perhaps a combination of a cyber attack and a missile launch. Plus, of course, they are overdue, many of us think, in testing a nuclear device. They haven't had an underground test in some time.
Okay.
So if they do this, it's going to be something that I think will be probably a bit of a different response than what we think we're going to see from them.
Albina, you're shaking your head in agreement. Why are you doing it?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I think it's very important to look very, very carefully at exactly what the North Korean statement said. First of all, it does not come from Kim Jong-un, the leader. It comes from the rank and file of the Korean People's Army, the military.
The military, right.
So it's a military position, and I don't believe the statement actually states that they will fire these 4 missiles. They are being very specific about the kinds of capabilities that they claim
It says
they possess.
examining the plan.
Well,
for
and
an
they talk about
enveloping strike.
interdiction. And in a way, it is absolutely about posturing, but there is plenty of room for North Korea to not fire these missiles. And in a way, it's trying to put the onus on the United States, that if the United States were to stage some sort of attack.
I know you want to get in, Commander, but one more question about Albina. But do you think that the military would have put this statement out without Kim Jong-un knowing about it?
No, of course not. On
Okay.
the other hand, branches of the North Korean regime, but especially the military, nobody's punished in North Korea for stepping too far out and being too aggressive.
Gotcha.
If anything, they get praised for that.
Lieutenant Commander, you want to jump in?
Good point you just made. The history of our relationship with North Korea has been to really take a step back. Try diplomacy, try conciliatory persuasion, doesn't work. Now they're dealing with a president who is saying, hey, look, if you cross this line, this is what's going to happen. And we're not there yet, Don. I don't believe we're going to get there because, as I said, I believe the president put it in such a way that they realize that they're not dealing with business as usual. They're dealing with a tough guy who's going to protect the American people.
Fascinating conversation. Love having you guys on. Thank you so much. When we come back, Trump's team was said to be rattled